Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome. Thank you all for your patience. We had a XCOM meeting right before this meeting. We're wrapping things up. So we thank you for your patience while we got ourselves together. The meeting is now called to order. Our mission, the Fairfax County NAACP is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization whose mission is to achieve equity, political rights, and social inclusion by advancing policies and practices that expand human and civil rights, eliminate discrimination, and accelerate the well-being, educational, and economic security of Black people and all people of color. I know, like I said, we have someone from Religious Affairs coming on. Religious Affairs, can you start us with a word, please?
Thank you. This is from the Baha'i prayers. O thou kind Lord, thou hast created all humanity from the same stock. Thou hast decreed that all shall belong to the same household. In thy holy presence they are all thy servants, and all mankind are sheltered beneath thy tabernacle. All have gathered together at thy table of bounty. All are illumined through the light of thy providence. O God, thou art kind to all, thou hast provided for all, dost shelter all, conferrest life upon all. Thou hast endowed each and all with talents and faculties, and all are submerged in the ocean of thy mercy. O thou kind Lord, unite all. Let the religions agree and make the nations one, so that they may see each other as one family and the whole earth as one home. May they all live together in perfect harmony. O God, raise aloft the banner of the oneness of mankind. O God, establish the most great peace. Cement thou, O God, the hearts together. O thou kind Father God, gladden our hearts through the fragrance of thy love. Brighten our eyes through the light of thy guidance. Delight our ears with the melody of thy word, and shelter us all in the stronghold of thy providence. Thou art the mighty and powerful. Thou art the forgiving, and thou art the one who overlooketh the shortcomings of all mankind.
Thank you, Ms. McClannahan. Next slide, please. President's report. So I have a few things to put out. I guess we can go, let's look at some of the, all right. This weekend, mark your calendars, 10 to 12:30, home ownership forum for people of color, which will be hosted by our very own Mary Payton, our housing chair, and that will be at Gum Springs Community Center. So please, 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 RSVP, come, get some information on the topics that you see here in bullet points, and some great guest speakers. Next slide, please. And Mary will talk more on that. Fairfax County represents 2025 College Day. As you all know, we lost our dear Michelle last January. And in her honor of her steadfast work, we have launched her scholarship, her Michelle Lee Scholarship. And we will be presenting her scholarship on June 7th, around 11:30, 11:45. But the event is from 11 to 2. And the event is from 11 to 2. I actually have the scholarship committee is going to do a briefing on this, but please screenshot this. If you go to church, send this flyer to your church We have Chair Michelle, if you're still here, can you put the flyer in the link? Can you put the flyer in the link for the housing, for the housing event this weekend and the
Yes.
College Day event?
Yes, I can.
Yes, can somebody please drop those in there? If you have children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews who are in school, whether it's K or K through 12, we are going to be having books. We are partnering with FEA, Fairfax Education Association. They will be donating backpacks. Fairfax County Teachers Association, FCFT, Fairfax County Federation of Teachers. They will be donating books from their book fair that they're having this month. So the books that they have left over for grades 12 K through 12, we will have those books on College Day. So again, FEA, the Fairfax Education Association, will be donating the backpacks for the kids, and FCFT will be donating the books. We also have Stuff the Trunk. Stuff the Trunk. What Stuff the Trunk is for the graduating seniors, as long as they have their ID card, they will come up and then they will get a clothes basket and they will fill up that clothes basket with things that they will need for their freshman year in the dorms. Washing powder, toothpaste, toothbrush, comb, things of that such. So make sure that you all spread the word to your churches, your HOAs, whatever have you. Take this link, post it on your social media as well. People can register for it or they can just show up. But again, we are giving out our first series of Michelle Lee scholarships. We will be giving out, I believe, 4 to 5 scholarships in June 7th. So please come out. Next slide, please. Get your sneakers ready. Get your sneakers ready. October 18th, 2025, 5:30, 9:30, our sneaker ball, that will be our Freedom Fund Gala this year, the rebirth of DEI. Please mark your calendars for that. Mark your calendars for that. As you can see here, our site is up. Chair Michelle, can you also put the link to our landing page for that? We are looking for sponsors. So again, your churches, your HOAs, whatever other organizations may be a part of, we're looking for sponsors for our event. The sponsorship packets are on our website. Please visit our website, Sneaker Ball, wear your nice sneakers. And so that's that on that. But we're going to keep drilling down on our Sneaker Ball. Next slide, please. Secretary's report.
Hello, everyone. It's great to see so many people here this evening. I want to make sure that everybody is aware that the wonderful meeting we had last month focused on Rosa Parks and some of her family members, one of whom is our membership chair, who you may be hearing from later. It was a wonderful event, and we have it on our YouTube channel, and perhaps our parliamentarian put that link in the chat for those who would like to see it and may not have been able to be there in person. In terms of the minutes for that meeting, I apologize for not getting them quickly enough to our communications chair this month. We do have them done, and we will be reviewing them, getting them to you, and having them for review and approval next month. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next slide. Before we move on to the advocacy, to the committee reports, I see a few people on here. How I do this? I want to see the people. How I do this? Somebody tell me how to change this so I can see people.
Go to view at the
View
bottom of the
gallery.
screen and change it to gallery. It currently must be on speaker.
Because I don't like that. I can't change it. I saw come in here Mark Forrest. He is the president of the Paleolithic Council. I said it wrong, but he's over the D9. So, Mark, can you jump on and tell us what kind of good things you guys have going on really quickly? How I do this? I don't want to be like this.
Hello, everybody. I was not expecting that, so I appreciate it, but don't have anything prepared right now. Only thing we as a council have coming up is one of our education programs. It's for the youth of Northern Virginia, mainly Fairfax, Falls Church, Arlington, and Alexandria. And so we have that program coming up. We will be putting a scholarship soon too. So we would like you guys to have a scholarship. We'll be looking for kids to apply to. And so I can share that with President Zimmerman so she can send that out once that is ready. And then that's really about it. All of our member chapters, we have, for those who don't know, National Panhellenic Council of Northern Virginia is like an umbrella organization for the defined organizations in our Northern Virginia area, which we define as, like I said, Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, and Fairfax cities and counties. In our council, we have 15 member chapters. Each of those 15 member chapters have programs that they do in their respective areas. Some are just in Alexandria, some are just in Arlington, some cover Fairfax County, some are in different of the different cities. And so I would encourage, if anyone is interested, to check out those websites, and we can always share that. They're on link to our council website on our member chapter page at novamphc.com. And so you would easily be able to go to the individual chapters pages to see what they are doing in their respective areas. And we as a council try to limit what we do and just support what our member chapters are, although we do have some signature things that we do as a council, such as this academic program I mentioned is coming up in May. Thank you.
Thank you. FEA, I see you there, Carla. What we got going on with FEA? Carla, going once, going twice.
Sorry, I'm driving, but it's great to be here. Thank you for everything you all are doing.
Any news from FEA that we should know?
We're here at the Board of Supervisors budget open hearing, advocating for the supervisors to do their part and honor our contracts.
Amen. Okay, so we will start with our treasurer. Uh-oh. Wait, what happened? The committee, Mike already did his, didn't he? Yeah, right there. We're gonna start with treasurer. Treasurer. Okay, scholarship committee. Daryl.
Yes, I'm here. Good evening, everyone. My name is Daryl Allen of the Scholarship Committee, and I just want to give an update on the Michelle Leap Scholarship. As of right now, we have not received any interest in the scholarship. And one thing that I did do that was recommended to me at the last month's meeting was to apply to have the scholarship a part of the Fairfax County School Board repository of scholarships. So I did apply for that. I haven't really heard back from anyone. I did reach out again, still haven't heard back. But I did apply for that. And we have shared our scholarship information with the HBCU Alliance. So it was advertised in their newsletter. And I just want to say that, I hope everybody on the line can really give the word out to anybody, any teenager they know that fits the criteria to ask them to apply for the scholarship. Please do. It's free money. And another thing, too, I just want to discuss briefly is the college day that we're going to have June the 7th. And we want to have college recruiters there. So I reached out directly to the presidents of the universities in the DMV area, including Bowie State, George Mason, and various other universities. And one person that I did hear a reply from was the president of the University of DC. And he said that he's going to work with his personnel to make sure that his university is represented at College Day. And pending any questions, that's all I have.
If you all have a direct link to college recruiters, military recruiters, please email me, president@fairfaxnaacp.org, and we can arrange for them to have a table at our College Day. You all have the flyers, so thank you for that, Daryl. Now we'll go to the treasurer.
Hi, sorry about that. Had some difficulties. All of our accounts are in good standing. There's nothing further to report.
Thank you. Short, sweet, and to the point. Anything from religious affairs? Religious affairs. Okay, legal redress.
Yes, I had a meeting with Supervisor Lusk and the Board of Supervisors. One thing I discussed with him is the co-responder model, the FCPD, where a police officer reports to the scene of a mental health crisis with a trained mental health professional. He mentioned that they are recruiting for that program and they're having trouble hiring the mental health professionals. So I'll put the link in the chat to the job announcement, and if you could spread the word that they're looking for people, that would be great. That's all for me.
Thank you. Criminal justice.
Hey, yeah, so there's one thing. A little while ago, uh, we there was a major breakdown in communications with the police department between the NAACP regarding a couple of foot pursuit policies and data transparency efforts. Basically, we have members on a committee who gave recommendations to the police department who seemed pretty open to them and open to accepting those recommendations, but they actually just went ahead with their original policies without taking any of the input we provided. One of our members here tonight, Matt Soud, was a member of that committee, and I think he has a bit more details and could go into more details about what exactly happened and how the situation broke down.
Yeah, if I can, I'll be pretty short here. Yeah, so the county put together the Fairfax one Fairfax roundtable, which was designed to deal with equity issues in the county, and they can put together these equity action teams on specific topics. Chief Davis asked to have one on the new foot pursuit policy that they were drafting. So there's a couple members at NAACP on that EAT and a couple other people from a variety of other groups. Basically, we gave them one round of recommendations. They took some of them into the policy, but most of the ones that were kind of most had the most kind of repercussions from our standpoint in terms of limiting foot pursuits in the future or making the data resulting from future foot pursuits more transparent. They rejected all those. We kind of went back to them with a second round. They told us that, hey, these are all pretty reasonable. We'll talk about them with the chief. And then they told us they'd get back to us. And then a week later, without telling us, they just released the policy as the final policy. So that's where we're at now. And, Pratik and I and the Criminal Justice Committee are going to be putting together a statement on behalf of the chapter regarding this matter.
Thank you. I saw Liza come in for religious affairs.
Yes, I just got home. Our only announcement is we have our meeting, general membership meeting next month. We're going to have some great guest speakers in preparation for our Juneteenth event, which is June 21st. So stay tuned for that.
Thank you. Budget.
Good evening, everyone. The Fairfax County fiscal year 2026 public hearings on the budget started today and will go on through Thursday. This year, a number of issues related to the tight budget due to the financial environment we're faced in. Real estate taxes have been a hot issue. I was listening earlier today. I'll be speaking on behalf of our branch tomorrow, and some of the issues that we will be advocating for. The branch will provide express its support for full funding of the collective bargaining agreement between the Fairfax County Public Schools and Fairfax Education Union. We also urge the Board of Supervisors to keep its commitment in future budgets for the 10,000 affordable units planned by 2034. We'll continue to, we'll request that the Board of Supervisors continue to fund services that prevent people from falling into homelessness. Also in the area of education, we will support or request that the schools have advocates fill positions for special ed and other areas that are currently unfilled, as well as providing, we will also be advocating for parents with students with special needs and their struggles to get the education opportunities that they are deserving of. We'll be mentioning earlier that what Meredith talked about, the co-responder program. We will be pushing that as well, that those positions that have not been filled, that they be filled. And we will be supporting further or additional funding for the Public Defender's Office so that those people who tend to be people of our communities who don't have the resources to post bail and obtain legal resources will be pushing for additional funding in those departments as well. Those are most of the issues. Those interested, the budget hearings are carried on Channel 16, your public access station, and also it's open to the public to attend as well. That's it.
Thank you. And we'll move on to education.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to let you all know that on May 7th from 6:30 to 8, we will be hosting an educators forum. It's an event we're hoping to host once every season to discuss issues that relates to education, that relate to Black educators, and just education in general. This year, this first event, we are having 3 guests we're really excited about. We're someone from the Commonwealth Institute is joining us to discuss educational issues from the state level. So they're keeping an eye on the way federal changes are impacting state and the way the state then would potentially impact us locally. And then from our own school district, we are inviting Nardis King, who's the Chief Equity Officer, to join us, and also Iona Spikes, who is, she's also in the administration in Fairfax County Public Schools, but she is the president of the Fairfax Alliance of Black School Educators. And they will be joining us, and we're going to have a conversation about that. They look for a flyer to come out that will have a QR code or some way for you to submit questions in advance. This will be an online, a Zoom panel, which will also be streamed to Facebook, and there will be a way when you register for the event that you could send in questions so we could make sure to discuss everything that you are most interested in. And this, this is an event for everyone, but certainly anybody who's particularly focused in or interested in education and educators themselves, and interested in what the current state of affairs is as we're doing away with the federal safety net, the Department of Education, and their threats to the State Department of Education as well, and how that would affect us. I just want to throw it out there. I neglected to mention this in the XCOM meeting that we just had, but we have we are looking for people to represent the branch
on the MSAOC and the TPAC, which is a Minority Student Achievement Advisory Committee, and Title I Parent Advisory Committee. There are some requirements for Title I Parent Advisory Committee. You have to actually be a parent in a Title I school. But MSAOC we've had seats there open for a long time, and I'm having a very hard time filling them. If you are particularly interested, just email the education, I don't even remember, education@fairfaxnaacp.org, and we'll just see whether that might be something that you would be able to do. Those are in-person meetings, and we're just looking for somebody to fill them. Thanks.
Thank you. Membership.
Hi, first, can everybody hear me? Is that a yes? Yes, I see some heads nodding. Okay, very good. So Jesse Ernest here, my co-chair Jasmine had to sign off a little early. There are two major activities going on with the membership committee that I want to share with you. First of all, we're doing an outreach to our expired members, and we're in a phase 1 of that outreach, and it's been very successful thus far. We have a target get renewals from our previous members of 100. We've reached 38 out of the 100 now in our first round, so that's going pretty well. Secondly, there's a Pan-Hellenic Council outreach to Black fraternities and sororities. We're told we cannot use the D9 nomenclature going forward, but so that activity is occurring as well, so that's going pretty well. And so those are the two major things. The other thing I would just touch on is, as a committee perspective, I know we have some new members here. If any persons are interested in joining the membership committee, please put your name in the chat. We love to reach out to you. We need your help. So that would be great. And then across all of our members here, if there are any new ideas, right, we're always open to new ideas as far as driving membership. Please share those as well. So thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Now, with that said, all of our committee chairs are here. So if there is a committee that you are interested in finding more information about, please reach out to that committee chair directly. We have Jesse Ernest from membership, Sajatha Hampton, Dr. Sajatha Hampton from education. We have Eliza Salander from religious affairs. Our third VP, Les Shockley, with budget. We have Pratik. I'm gonna stop using last names. We have Pratik from criminal justice. We have Mary, who is our housing chair. Let me see, because I'm clicking on this. We have Michelle Pulliam from our communications. We have Miss Lenore, who does our PAC. Miss Lenore, did you brief for PAC before we move on to Mary?
I can do so, yes, thank you.
Yes, please.
I even have a slide.
Yes.
Our committee will be mailing out 200 postcards to our Fairfax County neighbors, reminding them of the upcoming primary election in June. If you are interested in helping us with this effort, you can pick them up from me at the Black Home Ownership Forum on April 26th. Or if you want to pick them up and also write them at the stay and write them with us on April 30th. We will be at the Burke Center Library from 7 to 9. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you live in CD 11, we have to facilitate a town hall. CD 11. If you live in CD 11, email me, president@fairfaxnaacp.org. We have to put on a town hall. We have to put on a town hall, and we need all hands on deck as far as hosting it and working on it, working on that ad hoc committee. This was on the fly. State asked us to do a forum. So CD 11, if you live in CD 11, email me, president@fairfaxnaacp.org. Now we will hand it over to our housing chair, Ms. Mary Payton, who will give us her committee report, and then we will she will segue us into our special guest speaker. Thank you. Mary?
Hi, thanks, Nikki. Good evening, everyone. So we have been busy this month, the Housing Committee. Tomorrow we'll have a group of 10 people testifying at the budget hearings on the need for more funding for affordable housing and more rent relief for people that are slipping out of their current housing and need some help to stay there. This won't be official NAACP testimony. It'll be consistent with NAC testimony, but it'll have people with lived experience of both on the good side and on the sad side of getting housing through the county or not getting housing that they need through the county because there's not enough currently. Most of the money that the county uses for affordable housing actually comes from the federal government. And that's been quite threatened lately. It comes through HUD. HUD suffered a lot of staff cuts. Some of the major programs for HUD, there's talk about cutting them back. There's also a lot of health programs being cut back, like Medicaid, and the community health centers are having funds frozen. So it's a very bad outlook right now for people who are just struggling to get by. And I think our speaker will talk a little bit more about what's happening at the federal level. They're also kind of getting rid of some of the fair housing programs, which were usually spearheaded by HUD. Back on our agenda, homeless are still in the woods. They've gone back outside after the hypothermia season. April 1st, all the hypothermia shelters close and homeless people. The little pop-up said I might have switched to a different language, but can y'all hear me speaking English? I'm trying to keep in the same language. Yeah, and some of the funds for them are federal and they're being cut. And there's also a lot of homeless people in Reston did not get shelter. They had a tent camp out there last year. The tent camp was good. They weren't given any tents this year when they left the homeless shelters. But what they saw when they got outside was a lot of no trespassing signs on all the county properties. So they're not going to be allowed to even lie down and take a nap there. We did gain about 46 beds for homeless individuals, but that doesn't really make a big dent in the process. We're also working on tenant organizing issues in Gum Springs. We're trying to work with the tenants in a county-owned building with their blessings to get them to be able to ask for the things they need and point out what's wrong and what needs fixing. And we're also still working with the mobile home park people. There's about, I think, 1,700 mobile home families in Fairfax. Has finally gotten off the ground. Representatives from the parks and some of the park owners, and we're trying to work through some issues around maintenance and mainly around stability of the parks and whether some of the parks are going to be sold for development as designated in the comprehensive plan. Finally, as Nikki mentioned in the beginning of the meeting, we're having a home ownership forum for people of color at Gum Springs Community Center this Saturday, 10 to 12:30. We'll have a kind of light lunch towards the end of it. We've got speakers from the county program on home ownership, and we'll hear from a Black realtor who has good historic roots in the county and has been looking at land use and who owns homes for many, many years. And we also have someone from the ERC, which is the organization represented by our speaker here tonight, talking about discrimination in mortgage lending. And we'll talk about first-time homeowners, home buyers programs through different banks. But this is Fair Housing Month. April is always Fair Housing Month in the USA. There's actually quite a few activities going on. in surrounding counties this year. Fair housing funding has taken some hits from the current administration, but there's been sort of a upsurge in interest from our local council of governments, the Metropolitan Council of Governments, who help shape a new approach to fair housing last year through many, many meetings and lots of collaboration and lots of passing through various government bodies of goals to improve fair housing. Now that the federal fair housing efforts have basically collapsed, it's not good on that front. The regional folks have kind of taken up the mantle and are trying to keep moving it forward. So we have tonight as our speaker Susie McClannahan from the Equal Rights Council. This is an independent organization that promotes fair housing and equal rights. They also do testing, you know, the kind of testing where they send a black couple and a white couple to get an apartment and see if they're treated the same or differently. They do that kind of thing in Northern Virginia, in Fairfax County. They test about renting, lending, real estate sales, mortgage lending. They've been doing that for quite a long time, and they have some results that she can share with us. So Susie McClannahan is going to discuss the current state of fair housing, what it means for Fairfax County, and opportunities we still have to continue the fight for fair housing in the region. Susie, I see you there.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here. Let me get my screen shared. While I have a presentation, I personally just find that slides kind of help me digest information, but I do want this to be more of a conversation. So please feel free to chime in at any point with questions. Just as a bit of background, the Equal Rights Center, if you're unfamiliar with us, is a civil rights organization that identifies and seeks to eliminate unlawful and unfair discrimination in housing, employment, and public accommodations in our home community of Greater Washington, D.C., which includes Fairfax County, as well as nationwide. Tonight, I was hoping to talk with you all just to, first, I want to give a brief introduction if you're unfamiliar with the Fair Housing Act or fair housing protections, just to provide some background information, what the Equal Rights Center does, kind of what is the current state of fair housing. I know there's been a lot of media coverage, and it can honestly be kind of overwhelming to keep up with everything that's going on in all the various sectors, and discuss a bit about the Washington Regional Fair Housing Plan, and just generally more broadly what we can kind of do in our role as individuals to support fair housing. So just as a bit of background, fair housing refers to essentially housing free from discrimination. And there are several laws at the federal, state, and local level that make housing discrimination illegal. So the Fair Housing Act was passed in 1968 and includes protected classes, which are identities upon which it's illegal to discriminate, prohibited activities, which are the actions that would be illegal to do based on a protected identity, and what is frequently wasn't thought about for decades after this was put in until the Obama administration, is that jurisdictions that receive federal funds must affirmatively further fair housing, or you may have seen the abbreviation AFFH. And there has been a lot of back and forth since the Obama administration as to what affirmatively furthering fair housing means and how we can actually further promote fair housing. So the Fair Housing Act essentially applies to all housing-related transactions. We most frequently think of it as a refusal to rent, but it also applies to sales, lending, mortgages, homeowners or renters insurance, homeowners associations, condominium associations, pretty much any housing-related transaction. And within that, it's illegal to discriminate based on race or color, national origin, which is where you or your ancestors are from, familial status, which refers to families with children under the age of 18, disability, religion, and sex. Sex currently includes gender identity and sexual orientation, although I will say that that is currently under attack under the current presidential administration. And while It may also be protected via the courts. The courts are also becoming more hostile towards LGBTQ rights. So I can't say for how long that will remain the interpretation for what sex means. That being said, something that's really important to keep in mind is that these protections are not only at the federal level, but they also exist at the state and local level. So the state of Virginia also protects on the same identities and goes further and also makes it illegal to discriminate based on elderliness, which it defines as 55 years of age or older. It explicitly protects based on sexual orientation and gender identity. It makes it illegal to also discriminate based on source of funds, which is where we see some of the most rampant discrimination, which is based on how people will pay their rent. And unfortunately, there's significant discrimination against people with housing vouchers. And it's illegal to discriminate based on military status. Fairfax County and the City of Falls Church also then protect based on marital status as well. Okay. Any initial questions as to kind of what the fair housing laws are, broadly speaking? Okay, great. I'm going to keep on going. Oh, I see a hand up.
This is D. You forgot to put appraisal that's part of housing too. So there's discrimination in appraisals in the fair housing, in housing as in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that. So appraisal bias is currently has been a hot topic of conversation. There was a case that happened in the Maryland suburbs actually recently. But it's highly concerning and unfortunately a way that wealth has been stolen from Black homeowners. So absolutely appraisal discrimination would also be illegal under these laws. Okay, so just a bit of background as to what the Equal Rights Center does then. So we provide direct assistance to individuals who are alleging housing discrimination in the Washington, D.C. area, which includes the District of Columbia, Northern Virginia, all the way out to Jefferson County, West Virginia, and then the entire state of Maryland. We also conduct systemic investigations throughout the region into housing discrimination. Some of this we do through HUD funding, through grants that we receive, and some of this is through our own resources. We do community education outreach events so that people are aware of their rights. This is almost fully funded via HUD grants. We also do public policy work. For instance, Mary actually reached out to me recently and let me know about an affordable housing project in Fairfax County that was controversial. And so we helped submit testimony about the importance of supporting community integration through having affordable housing throughout the county in order to ensure that people can live where they want, no matter based on their socioeconomic status. And that unfortunately, it seemed like some of the language that was being used to attack the affordable housing was specifically targeted around voucher holders. And so we talked as well about the link between language around voucher holders and race as well. And then lastly, we provide compliance services for housing providers so that they're able to implement best practices and kind of spot check for potential discrimination without anyone having to file a complaint. One of the major strategies that the ERC uses, and Mary mentioned earlier, is testing. And so testing involves individuals posing as, for instance, interested renters or home buyers and going and talking to an agent. So in this case, we have a white tester and a black tester going in. And the white tester asks about a 1-bedroom, is told that they have some available and is encouraged to apply. Now, later, a black tester goes in, asks for the same information. And in this case is told, unfortunately, that there's no units available. And so given kind of how fast the housing market is here, it can be hard to know whether someone's experiencing discrimination or whether, for instance, something's just simply going on or off the market. And so testing can kind of help us better suss out what's going on. So for instance, we had a renter contact us. She had a voucher and she went in and did a tour of the building. When she said she had a voucher, they said, oh, we accept those, but then they made a nasty facial expression. And she was just like, my gut is telling me that they don't want to accept me because I have a housing voucher. And what we found is that when we did testing and a person contacted them with the voucher, that they were told the unit was off the market And when she actually went in after she did the tour, they called her soon after and said, I'm really sorry, we have another application in, but we're happy to show you some other properties elsewhere. But when we had a tester contact without the voucher, what we found is that not only was that unit available, but there was another unit available in the building. So they were essentially screening people for vouchers to see whether or not they would offer the unit to them. So that would be an example of intake-based testing we did where someone contacted us and testing helped actually confirm what exactly was going on in the market. We also do audit testing. A lot of this is funded via one of our HUD grants where we just want to know what's kind of going on in the rental market overall. So we might do like a bunch of tests, for instance, on criminal records and see if someone discloses a criminal record. And for, I think a while back, for instance, we had white women and black women disclose criminal records and see what they were told and see whether there might be discriminatory treatment based on race. Systemic investigations we also use testing to help launch systemic investigations. For instance, we might receive tips about a certain housing provider. Folks have contacted us, for instance, about housing providers in Northern Virginia that may not be accepting vouchers, and then we can do testing to confirm what exactly is going on. And then we will also do contract testing for jurisdictions. As Mary mentioned, we've had several testing contracts with Fairfax County over the last several years, where we will do testing into the rental market or lending market to understand more broadly kind of whether discrimination may be at play in the local market, and if so, what it's looking like. And then lastly, we do compliance testing for housing providers. So just a bit more about our intake program. We do provide advocacy to address possible discrimination. We also assist people with disabilities with requesting reasonable accommodations, such as like an accessible parking space or having an emotional support animal in housing in a no pets building. We also do testing, as I mentioned, and we do accessibility site surveys. And lastly, we help people actually file complaints with either Fairfax County Office of Human Rights and Equity Programs or HUD. So that is just a bit of an overview about the ERC. I wanted to spend most of our time. I know there's a lot going on with what's going on with fair housing generally. So I want to just quickly pause and see if there's any questions before I move into this section.
I just had a quick question, Susie. This is Jesse. When I think about realtors, and I'm thinking about the other side of the discrimination, which could be we have an option as homeowners to select our agents and whether we choose someone of color or not. Is there any studies done about, the good or the bad or discrimination when it comes to having an agent of color versus an agent of a white agent? Just a simple way to say that.
I don't personally know that research. I'm sure that it might exist. I can't speak to it directly, but I know that like one issue that we see a lot in the home buying market is that real estate agents will frequently steer people to neighborhoods based on the race of the home buyer and assumptions that, for instance, a white home buyer will want to live in a majority white neighborhood, or that a home buyer of color will want to live in a community of color. And so I don't know specifically like what the research says about maybe steering, as it depends on like the agent's race. But I do know that steering is like one of the area of particular concern when it comes to real estate agents.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Jesse, this is Dee. I'm a real estate agent, and that's against the law to do that. If you find out that someone's doing that, they can be reported to DPOR, and they will be fined. They can either lose their license, or they have to go back to school, or other things, and they have to pay a fine as well. So there's ways that you can report that person if they're steering you to specific location. They're not supposed to do that, but if they do, report them, because they shouldn't be practicing real estate, and I'm a real estate agent.
Yeah, I would also just recommend, it doesn't specifically answer the question you were asking, Jesse, but there was a Newsday investigation. It's a New York newspaper that looked into potential discrimination by real estate agents in Long Island in New York. And one of the things that the investigation highlighted is actually the ways that real estate agents are using coded language to cue white people towards units in majority white neighborhoods where they think that where they essentially want to steer them. And so lots of comments will be made about better quality schools or the level of crime in neighborhoods, or just like, you know, neighborhoods that are more peaceful. So there's a lot of racially coded language that can also happen. And much of that is actually happening towards white home buyers. And it really speaks to the importance of white home buyers also being mindful of kind of what their agents are saying and what choices those agents are making, because they might actually be able to pinpoint race discrimination that's occurring. Because what the investigation found is that given the exact same information from home buyers, where one home buyer was white and one was either Latina or a Black woman, and they would tell the home buyers of color that, like, oh, well, you know, we'll show you this neighborhood. It's great. I love showing people this neighborhood. And they tell the white home buyer, I wouldn't live here if I were you. Like, check the crime rates, check the school rates. You know, and it was really discouraging to see just like the very different treatment that individuals were given based on the race of the home buyer. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Ken from Fairfax. If I remember correctly, it's against the law to refuse the mortgage industry and everything like that, but it's against the law to refuse a person either renting or buying a house for a color because of color. And I think it's called the Fair Housing. I can't remember. Fair Housing something. But I think if you look that up, it's against the law for anybody, real estate or someone acting in that position, even if you're selling your own house. It's called the Fair Housing Act. And I think it was done back in the 1980s or so. It may have changed a little bit, but Susie, you probably know more about that. I'm an old man, so you probably know more about that than I do. So
don't sell yourself short. You're, as you said, so the Fair Housing Act, that's the federal law you're talking about.
Yes.
It was passed initially in 1968, but as you alluded to, in the 1980s, it was amended and
Right.
they added protections for sex and disability. And yes, the practices I'm describing, to be clear, are absolutely illegal. They just unfortunately still happen. And so something for individuals who, for instance, are buying a home, no matter how they identify, you know, you can be mindful of how an agent, for instance, or any real estate professional is engaging with you and listening for ways that like there might be signs of discrimination, because if discrimination is occurring, that can be reported and it is illegal.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, great. So next we're going to talk about the state of fair housing. I'm just going to preface this by saying that I know this can be, right now, things that can be extremely bleak, and we will be talking after just kind of going over what the state is right now, ways that we can engage. But I do know that there's just a lot going on, and I want to kind of explain what's happening and what it all means. So I welcome questions throughout this, or if folks have topics of discussion, other things you're hearing. This, again, I don't want to feel like it's a PowerPoint presentation that's happening at you. Like, I do want this to be an actual conversation. So as a bit of background, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD, is currently going through massive cuts. Latest reports indicate about 2,300 employees, or what is about 23% of HUD staff. So they had about 10,000 employees, have supposedly retired, been put on administrative leave, or taken the deferred resignation program, and are no longer with the agency or won't be with the agency for much longer. In addition to that, the cuts specifically in the Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity Office are even more severe. So while there are discussions that there may be potential cuts of up to 50% of HUD staff, at the Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity, we're looking at more around 3/4. So current numbers floating around is that they might try to cut about 76%. Now, the Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity Office is the office responsible for fair housing. So they're the office investigating complaints of housing discrimination. They're the office administering grants to organizations like the ERC that do fair housing work as nonprofits. And so there are significant concerns that cutting that much funding will have devastating impact on HUD's ability to actually enforce the Fair Housing Act. So there's essentially two main ways that people report housing discrimination. One is through filing a complaint at HUD or a similarly situated state or local agency. So Fairfax County Office of Human Rights and Equity Programs is the agency in Fairfax County that will frequently investigate housing discrimination complaints. And they receive money from HUD in order to investigate complaints on behalf of HUD, essentially. Cases can take years right now at HUD, and that's with full staffing. So this level of cuts could be pretty dire. HUD also plans to close its field offices in 34 states and DC, meaning that there will be fewer points of contact with the community in order for people to get information about their rights and have local staff familiar kind of with what the local housing landscape is. Now, as I mentioned, there's lots of cuts potentially coming to the Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity Office. In addition to that, you may have heard about HUD canceling fair housing grants specifically. So in late February, HUD canceled 78 fair housing grants, which totaled all in all about $30 million to various nonprofit fair housing organizations. Some organizations saw all of their HUD grants, for their HUD fair housing grants canceled. Others saw none of theirs canceled. We, for example, have 3 grants from HUD for fair housing work, and one of the 3 of ours was canceled. Several fair housing organizations then sued HUD and DOJ for the grant terminations in March, and a judge quickly issued what's called a temporary restraining order to prevent the grant terminations. But the judge then lifted that order in April, meaning that the grant terminations could likely proceed. More troubling is that HUD essentially has also not announced awards for already congressionally approved funding for fair housing grants. So fiscal year 2024 grant cycle, essentially the applications were due in November. Usually by this time, HUD would have announced who would be receiving these grants and doing grant negotiations so that the grants could start again. But we've not heard any mention of this. And so there's a real concern that essentially there simply won't be any more funding from the federal level to support nonprofit organizations doing fair housing work. Any questions about what's going on either kind of at HUD overall or with fair housing grants?
I have a question. This is Lenore. Is there any thought or are you aware of any other organizations who might be helping these organizations since they won't be getting money from the federal government?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that is honestly something we are all wondering right now. One opportunity is actually for local counties and cities to provide funding to help support this work. So I mentioned, for instance, that we have a testing contract with Fairfax County, and it's possible that essentially local funding is going to be all the more important in the near future if essentially there is no more federal funding for this work. Any other questions or thoughts? Okay. Then that's kind of the state of staffing and what's going on kind of budget-wise. I wanted to also talk a bit about the affirmatively furthering fair housing interim final rule. So there has been a major volley back and forth since essentially the Obama administration did the first AFFH or affirmatively furthering fair housing rule. And there have been a lot of changes in the last decade, essentially. The most recent update, and yes, Jesse, I promise you after this slide, we're talking about what we can do. So I know that this is hard. And I also just wanted to provide some context as to what's going on. So I'm very much with you. the AFFH rule, essentially what is really valuable about it is many civil rights laws essentially assume that discrimination towards everyone of different identities was the same until it became illegal. And we know that that's simply not true, right? That certain groups have been historically harmed in ways that others were not. And so what is actually remarkably unique about the Fair Housing Act and the affirmatively furthering fair housing rules, it's that not only is discrimination now illegal, but we actually now have to undo the harm that we know was created by discriminatory policies up until this point. So it's not just that everyone now starts from wherever they were at and we just can't do discrimination anymore. We actually need to take meaningful effort to undo the discrimination that the federal government and local jurisdictions was frequently a primary mover of, and work to create integrated communities. Now, this has unfortunately been extremely controversial, and the Biden administration was actually working to strengthen the affirmatively furthering fair housing rule, but it's been rolled back under the current administration. So the law itself, essentially there's like one sentence in the entire law that just says any federal agency or recipient of federal funding, which is going to be pretty much any local jurisdiction, including Fairfax County, must affirmatively further fair housing if they're receiving money from HUD or from a housing program. So it's like a single sentence in the law, and there's been a lot of debate back and forth as to what that actually means and how to do it. The most recent interpretation, the Trump administration published what's called an interim final rule on March 3rd. The rule essentially became effective on April 1st, and you can still comment on it, but it's currently in effect as of 22 days ago. What it did is it removed the requirement that local jurisdictions have to create a plan to remove fair housing barriers. So if anyone was here at the meeting last year that I presented at, I walked through what was going on with the Washington Regional Fair Housing Plan, which included Fairfax County, and the goals that they had set up to address the largest fair housing barriers in the region. And essentially what the new rule says is you don't actually have to create a plan. You don't actually need to do the research and look and identify what are the specific barriers in your local region that are happening. Now, local governments and agencies can simply self-certify that they are affirmatively furthering fair housing. So essentially the federal government says, we'll take you at your word, just check the box and you're good to go. And it significantly reduces the burden on local jurisdictions in order to actually take steps. So previously, under the prior rule, it said that local jurisdictions and federal agencies needed to take meaningful actions to support desegregation, promote integration. But it said that there essentially meaningful steps had to be taken, not just anything. What the current law or what the current rule says is any action rationally related to promoting fair housing is enough to suffice that you have affirmatively furthered fair housing. So if you do literally anything that could reasonably be associated with not, promoting housing discrimination, you have fulfilled this requirement. So the minimum threshold has essentially gone to the floor. Now, I do want to say that this is essentially the minimum required of jurisdictions, and something that I think we should keep in mind and be grateful for is that actually the Washington, D.C. region, which did a regional plan, so Fairfax County, Arlington, Alexandria, the District of Columbia, Montgomery County, I think Prince William and Loudoun all got together and said, hey, let's chat, let's figure out what's going on. And when I say let's chat, I mean they spent I think about 7 years drafting this plan. It was extremely and time intensive, and it was the first time that local jurisdictions throughout the DMV got together and actually created a plan that looked at more than just kind of what was going on in their specific, city or county limits. And what we know is that if something's going on in Fairfax County, it's also impacting Arlington. It's also impacting Loudoun and Prince William. And so this idea that we could solve for housing, the need to engage in housing desegregation, to address affordable housing within a single city or county, we knew was not going to be an effective strategy. And so the local governments got together, they created this plan, and the plan was finalized in November of 2023. Now, since they don't really need to create this plan, they could have chosen to stop the process, but they have actually chosen to continue it, which I think, speaks really well of the local governments. And it also means that there is an opportunity to continue to ask the local governments to essentially aim high instead of low. They can easily fulfill their AFFH burden now, but they can still continue to actually just go for that higher threshold of taking meaningful steps and actions. And so this kind of relates into the next section I want to talk about of what we can do. But I want to pause here to see if anyone has any questions, just kind of more broadly about what's happening or any topics that they wanted to discuss. Jesse, are you breathing okay? Want to do a check-in?
Thanks for asking. A little better. We'll see. Keep it going.
Okay.
Keep it going, please.
Okay. So this is the what we can do section. And I'm going to briefly talk about the federal level, but then I want to more focus on the local level. So on the federal level, if anyone has an opinion on the interim final rule and whether it will be effective at affirmatively furthering fair housing or not, you can submit a comment before May 2nd of 2025. So the ERC will be submitting comments about these changes and whether I will forecast that we do not think they will be effective in meaningfully addressing fair housing. But I've attached links here about how you can submit a comment, more information about the interim final rule, and I'm going to share these slides out after the presentation so that everyone has access to this information if you're interested in doing so. We would also just encourage you to contact your congressional representatives to let them know your priorities and concerns about what's going on at the federal level so that they're aware as well. Any questions about the federal level? Okay. So then I mentioned this, but one of the exciting things is that at the local level is that we can still encourage Fairfax County to fully implement the goals that it made under the 2023 Washington Regional Fair Housing Plan. Last year, I went over these goals in depth in case anyone has a really good memory. Your memory would then be better than mine. But essentially, what the goals were was one, and actually this was about 3 or 4 goals, was that the report found, and I don't think this will come as a surprise, but the DC region is in an affordable housing crisis. There is not enough affordable housing. We're not near having enough affordable housing. There's a dire need for both preserving the current affordable housing that exists, for building new affordable housing, for taking a look at like land use policies and seeing how we can make it easier for affordable housing to be meaningfully built equitably throughout the region. And so I would say goal number 1, but essentially goals number 1 through 3, were we need more affordable housing. And I would imagine that that is a very resonant issue for folks in Fairfax County as well. The second goal was increasing homeownership generally, but also very specifically reducing the racial homeownership gap. And so we know that there are many challenges to becoming a homeowner. And if you look throughout the region, I don't remember the exact statistics off the top of my head, but the homeownership rates are very stark by race. And so one of the goals is to essentially help bridge that gap and figure out ways to make homeownership more accessible to individuals of color. Another goal was to increase community integration for people with disabilities. So this means having more housing that is accessible, having more housing, for instance, that is along accessible routes of transportation, and having just better community resources for individuals with disabilities so that they can live in the communities that they want. And then lastly, one of the goals was essentially working to eliminate housing discrimination. So these goals were made kind of at the broad regional level, but they were also then, most of these goals were then echoed specifically by Fairfax County on the local level as well. And so theoretically, for the next 5 years, they should be reporting out on what they're doing to address these goals. and something that we can continue to provide feedback on and encourage the county is to make sure that they are addressing these goals in the most effective strategies and doing their utmost to address the very dire needs that they identified in the Regional Fair Housing Plan. So, and I will give a huge shout out here to Mary Payton on the Housing Committee, who was involved in the multi-year process of the drafting of the Washington Regional Fair Housing Plan. She showed up to so many meetings and encouraged that. And I think I want to also just generally shout out Fairfax County NAACP here for frequently pushing the local jurisdictions to set more robust and more of reach goals. And so the goals that were set within this plan were strengthened specifically by the community engagement that occurred, and that was led frequently by the Fairfax County and Arlington County branches of the NAACP. And so I think you all have really shown a leadership role in this, and I think there's a real opportunity to continue these engagement efforts and make clear to the counties that we're really glad they made these commitments and we'd like to see them followed through on. Mary, do you want to have a quick opportunity to pitch any of your work with the Regional Fair Housing Plan?
Yeah, I don't know if the counties still, or any of the counties or jurisdictions engaged in making reports to COG on their progress.
Yes, so for context, COG, the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, was the facilitator of the process, and they are now working actually to convene the jurisdictions and have them report back out on their goals. So this is also rather new. In prior years, the plans would be written, and frequently then 5 years later, when the new plan needed to be written, they were dusted off and they were looked at again. But it wasn't always clear actually what was done from the plans. And so an area of interest, and again, none of the counties have to do that under the current interpretation of the AFFH rule, but they're choosing to do so anyway. Is one of the next steps is hopefully to have a report back on year one of what was accomplished by all the local counties and jurisdictions, and then talk about kind of year two.
So when would those be due? Is COG reaching out to them to give a
COG has
report?
already reached out to the jurisdictions. I think they did so in March, and they are slowly gathering feedback now.
Okay. And when do they hope to get the reports?
I think we are moving on government time, so I'm not exactly sure how fast they'll be back in, but they are avidly working on it.
At Fairfax, we've had some personnel changeover in some of the key positions that we engaged with when we were trying to sharpen our goals. And I don't know, I'll have to re-engage again with the new people and see if they even have any information about this at all.
Yeah, so I think COG is in touch with the Fairfax County Office of Human Rights and Equity Programs, and is also in touch with Fairfax County DHCD to check in on their goals.
Yeah, I'll check with the equity program. We had a fair housing representative in our Office of Equity and Housing who left, and then they were hiring a new one. Last I heard, I didn't know if they got somebody or not. But we do have a good new equity officer, and I'll check in with her.
Great. Other thoughts or comments about the Regional Fair Housing Plan, or other thoughts about, ways to engage locally on this issue? Okay, well, then I will keep us moving. Okay, so some other ways to get involved are you can become a civil rights tester actually for the ERC if you are interested in going undercover and seeing what's going on in the local housing market. Testers work with the ERC to gather information to identify unlawful discrimination by posing as individuals seeking housing. Generally speaking, this is on a periodic as needed basis, but we do testing in Virginia, DC, and Maryland, and are open to essentially kind of sending people to, we know that that is a large, we have a large service area, but we are happy to send testers to kind of whatever areas they feel able to get to. So some of our testers have cars, some of them don't. We're not going to send a tester living in the middle of downtown DC without a car to Prince William County, for instance. So if that is of interest, there is a link here and a QR code. And again, I'll share these slides out later if you want to fill that out. Additionally, there's a number of events going on in the next couple weeks, and Mary already beat me to some of them. But we do have the ERCs for Housing Month event on this Friday, April 25th from noon to 1:30 p.m. at our office in downtown DC, right behind Union Station. We'll be talking more about kind of the state of fair housing, what we've accomplished in the last year and what we see in the year ahead, and would welcome anyone who would like to attend. Then also, Mary already advertised this, but there is the Fairfax County Homeownership Forum for people of color. And since you already covered it, Mary, I will move right along. The Arlington NAACP branch is also holding a fair housing conference on Saturday, May 3rd from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And it is co-hosted by the NAACP Arlington branch, the Equal Rights Center, and Housing Opportunities Made Equal, which is the other fair housing organization in Virginia, which is based in Richmond. And this will be exploring kind of the state of fair housing policy, both under the federal and state administrations, and the ways that local governments in the region can take strong action to protect residents from housing discrimination. So if that's of interest, we would encourage you to join us. And last but not least, there is also a fair housing conference happening on Tuesday, May 20th at the Fairfax County Government Center. That's hosted by the Fairfax County Office of Human Rights and Equity Programs, and is in partnership with multiple counties and cities in Northern Virginia, as well as the ERC, Home of Virginia, and Virginia Fair Housing Office, and will include a discussion of financial assistance available for rental housing and mortgages, housing protections, and resources. And further details are forthcoming on that one. So I was told to end by 8:30, and I will never hold people past the end time of my meetings, my end time. So we have 5 minutes remaining. And if anyone has any further questions or things they want to discuss, I would be happy to do so, but also mindful of the clock.
Susie, I have a question. What kind of mood are you finding in the local jurisdictions? I get the impression everybody's kind of trying to keep their head down because there's so much leverage the federal government has about cutting off their various streams of funding. If they don't go along with the immigration plans, if they get too much DEI, if they get too, fair housing, I think they think of fair housing as some kind of DEI. And a lot of people are just kind of keeping their head down. They don't want to, get shot at. So they're just kind of playing it cool and hiding and not trying to do much. And makes you wonder how much pressure you can put on them, because so much pressure is coming from the White House.
Yeah, I honestly, I didn't even bother to make this PowerPoint until the last week, because I knew that if I did something more than a week ago, that the content may no longer be relevant. So a lot is changing very quickly. And people are scared. Local governments are scared. And what we know is that when we act together as a group, we keep ourselves safe in community. And I think that, one of the things, for instance, with the Regional Fair Housing Plan that we can point out is that the new AFFH rule doesn't say you can't do more. It just says that the minimum bar is really low. And there, there is safety when we move in groups and movements. And so that, having the larger region do this as a whole versus like one county take the lead is a real opportunity to provide kind of this larger sheltering that local governments may be seeking.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, other thoughts?
What's involved in being the tester?
Yeah, testers will, go to either apartment buildings or, leasing offices, what have you, or make phone calls, and kind of just record what their experience is like. Just objectively kind of note take what happens on a report form. And testers, we provide stipends to compensate them for their time, and it's, I would say, very periodic. Maybe like some of our testers are super engaged and might be testing every month, but many of our testers might only be doing tests like once a quarter or something like that. So it just kind of depends on what we need and what works for the tester schedule.
So how do you get involved? I saw a QR code, but I didn't have a chance.
Yeah, so there's a link and a QR code on that page, and I can actually just put the link in the chat. But if you fill out just like a basic interest form, we do periodic tester trainings. So you might not hear from us initially because we just kind of wait till we have a critical mass where we're looking to train new testers. But we reference that and then reach out to people to schedule for tester trainings that we host a couple times a year. Let me stop sharing these slides so I can get to it. Come on, Zoom. Oh, there we go. Great. Well, thank you everyone for having me. Please feel free to reach out if you ever have any questions or any concerns. And I really appreciate you all making the time to let me come and present.
Thank you so much, Susie. Always very clear and very logical and put things out in a way that people can understand it.
So glad.
Thank you very much, Susie, for coming on and giving us a wealth of knowledge. And since you already did your Q&A, that would conclude our April meeting. Hopefully we can see you all this Saturday. Don't forget College Day, June 7th, College Day, June 7th, College Day, June 7th. Education Committee, they're having a forum, a virtual forum in May. And again, if you live in Congressional District 11, email me. We have to have a town hall, all hands on deck. If you can help, that would be great. We are having an in-person town hall. So if you live in Congressional District 11, email me at president@fairfaxnaacp.org. Thank you again. College Day, College Day, College Day. Come through, come through. Good night, everybody. I'll stay on for an extra 5 minutes.
Nikki, 11th is, are you talking about Jerry Connolly's district?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, and I'm sorry, what do you want us to do?
We're having a town hall. We have to put on a town hall for how the election and the policies have affected the Black community. State has come down and said that we have to do an in-person town hall for Congressional District 11. So I would like all hands on deck. If you are a member and you live in Congressional District 11, email me so we can start working this out. We're going to start putting you members